Hello there and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 Midnight News. To the headlines. In Palestine, as death toll exceeds 11,500 martyrs, including more than 4,600 children, intense Zionist raids on Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah, and mass grave for martyrs in the Shifa medical complex. Hamas announces the destruction of 180 Zionist tanks, confirms its control over the field situation in Gaza, and demands an international investigation committee to determine the falsity of the Zionist narratives regarding the Strip's hospitals. Lincoln admits differences within the U.S. State Department due to the Washington support for the Zionist entity, and French diplomats sign a memorandum criticizing Paris' position and policies in the Middle East. As part of an effort to enhance the process of promoting immersion in business companies, Algeria intends to launch a national agency for self-entrepreneurship and in the work of the North African Energy Hydrogen Conference, a global interest in the Algerian strategy for hydrogen production. Hello there and welcome again. On the 39th day of the Zionist occupation aggression, the relentless bombing and the destruction of Gaza persist. New massacres unfold, targeting various areas with hospitals like Al-Shifa, Al-Nasr Indonesian and Al-Quds, and the siege worsening an already dire health crisis. More in this report.
The Zionist war machine persists in its unyielding assault, resulting in numerous casualties and extensive destruction in Gaza Strip. In Khan Yunis, at least 10 Palestinian, primarily children, lost their lives due to airstrikes on 2 homes in the eastern part of the government.
A very bad smell there, and we are sure all kinds of infections and diseases will be transmitted from that one. Today we had a little bit of rainy weather in the morning, and then the smell was really horrible. No one could even open a window or just walk around within the corridors with this very bad smell. Unfortunately, there is no approval from the Israelis for us to even bury the bodies within the hospital area, as we asked the ICRC many times.
Occupation aircraft targeted a house in Dar al-Balah, resulting in 1 martyr and numerous injuries in the central Gaza Strip. To the north, at the Indonesian hospital, 6 martyrs and several injuries were reported after a house near Al-Fakhura school in Jabalia camp was bombed. The camp, previously subjected to violent raid destroying 12 homes, witnesses 31 martyrs and numerous injuries. New humanitarian catastrophe unfolded as 179 bodies were buried on Al-Shifa Medical Complex campus due to power outages affecting the hospital's corpse refrigerators.
Everyone in that hospital is in a really, really dire situation. All their lives are so threatened. So we as the world have to find a way to help them. The best way would be to stop the hostilities right now, focus on saving lives, not taking lives.
Al-Shifa Hospital, once a place of healing, has become a graveyard, facing continuous targeting along with other hospitals in Gaza, exacerbating the already critical situation.
In the same line of thought, the director of Arantishi Children's Hospital in Gaza, Dr. Mustafa Al-Kahlout, said on Tuesday that the hospital has been evacuated and is now out of service. Dr. Al-Kahlout added that the facility is besieged by the Zionist forces and that the medical staff, patients and dozens of displaced families all were forced to evacuate. During the evacuation, some patients are being left behind in intensive care units. Also, the Palestinian Health Ministry spokesperson confirmed the reports of increased Zionist attacks around the Shifa hospital last night, saying that the medical complex has been encircled and that there has been heavy shelling and gunfire.
The evacuation process that happened midday Friday was forced. Some might think that there was a conversation and coordination. Yes, there was conversation and coordination, but the hospital was besieged by tanks and water, power and oxygen were cut, and there was various targeting of the hospital. So we were forced to evacuate the hospital from patients and medical staff, as well as the displaced families that came for protection to reside in the hospital's vicinity and buildings.
The government media office in Gaza reported a total of 1,165 massacres by the Zionist occupation army, with 3,600 missing persons, including 1,755 children still trapped under the rubble. In a daily press conference, the office spokesperson revealed that the death toll from the ongoing Zionist bombing exceeds 11,500, including 4,650 children. A Shifa medical complex besieged and targeted by the occupation army witnessed the deaths of 40 martyrs since the onset of the besiege. 10 Palestinians were killed by the Zionist occupation forces, 7 of them at the Tulkarm when the Zionist occupiers overran the city and its camp. This occurred at the midst of large-scale demonstrations in the city streets in favor of Gaza and detainees held in the Zionist jails.
While the Zionist occupation army continues the genocide in Gaza, it is also waging a relentless war against the Palestinians in the West Bank. This time, Tulkarm witnessed an aggression that resulted in 7 martyrs, while more than 30 Palestinians were arrested. A Palestinian youth was also killed after being shot by the Israeli occupation forces in Al-Khalil, and another was hospitalized in the city hospital during the occupation's storming of Jenin. Meanwhile, a prisoner was martyred in one of the occupation prisons, bringing the number of martyrs from Monday night until Tuesday to 10. The Tabet governmental hospital in Tulkarm was also the target of the occupation attacks, which resulted in several injuries among patients and medical personnel after it was targeted with tear gas bombs. Doctors and families of jailed Palestinians rallied in Al-Khalil in solidarity for a ceasefire in Gaza and with those detained in occupation prisons. The protests took place separately but highlighted the priority for residents in the West Bank.
Today, there are thousands of prisoners in the prisons. Unfortunately, massive assaults are carried out against our prisoners. And recently, and after October 7, there have been acts of racism carried out by Israeli occupation against our prisoners. Therefore, today, we stand here to convey our message to the whole world, asking it to intervene, to stop all those discriminative measures that are taken against our prisoners.
We are here in solidarity with our colleagues, the prisoners, and in solidarity with my brother, the prisoner Maher Abu Turki, and tell them, may God decrease your anguish. We are with you and hope that God is with you too.
In addition to the ongoing massacre of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza by the occupation forces, there is a simultaneous, unprecedented Zionist escalation throughout the West Bank with the goal of encircling the area.
Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas announced that the Zionist occupation lost 180 tanks during the battles, stressing that what is coming will be bigger. Hamas leader Osama Hamdan said in a press conference in Lebanon that the movement is waging a battle through which it seeks liberation and establishment of Palestinian state with Al-Quds as its capital, stressing the resistance control over the situation on the ground.
نطمئن شعبنا والشعوب الحرة حول العالم.
We reassure our people and free people across the world that the Palestinian resistance and Al-Qassam brigades are all right, and they are controlling the combat situation on the ground. We are conducting the battle to achieve the Palestinian dream and Palestinian hope to defeat the occupation and establish an independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds as its capital. It will be our people's merit after all these sacrifices.
And on this matter, previously we have talked to Mr. Shadi Abu Ayyash, communication lecturer at Arab American University from Ramallah, Palestine, about the ground operation and how Al-Qassam brigades are fighting the Zionist army mobilization. And he had this to say.
Actually, the on-ground confrontation now between the Israeli occupation army and the member of the Palestinian resistance is taking place in Gaza. And the way we can look at it is not is a war, actually, is a military confrontation between different styles of fighting. You have the Israeli occupation army is using the traditional army style of invading cities, using the tanks with the help of the Air Force, while the Palestinian resistance are using their local knowledge of Gaza, the local made weapons and other weapons that is available by them. However, I don't think it's more has to do with the military equipment. The decisive matter, in my opinion, is who has the right. The Palestinians are defending their people, defending their lands. So their force, their motives, their goals are much more important to them than the Israelis who are invading the Palestinian lands, killing civilians. So I think not only the military goal or the military element will be the decisive, it will be who has the right. And I think the Palestinian fighters each one of them knows that he has the right. He's defending his own people, so there will be fierce fighters on the ground. It is no secret that Israel is targeting hospitals, civilians, schools, United Nations agencies, buildings in Gaza. Now the Israeli claim that these buildings and these public places as well as hospitals are being used by the resistance, which is false actually. However, the idea behind targeting all hospitals, including and mainly Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, is to legitimize the genocide that is taking place in Gaza against the Palestinian people. And by claiming that it is used as a military base by the resistance, by Hamas, Israel is legitimizing the genocide that is taking place. There is no military point or gain by targeting Al-Shifa Hospital, except that it's legitimizing the genocide operation that is taking place in Gaza.
In a military statement, Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas, reported that 9 Zionist soldiers had been killed from zero distance and that the other soldiers had been wounded in clashes with the occupation forces that were entering the Gaza Strip from various directions. The brigades further stated that they used 105 Al-Yashin shells to hit 2 Zionist tanks, one located in Gaza City western axis and the other to the southwest. Using a short-range Stone missile system, the resistant fighters also targeted Zionist occupation forces concentrations. Al-Quds brigades, on the other hand, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, announced the targeting of Zionist occupation soldiers in a Kisofilm settlement with firing shells and intense missile bombardments on the Third Eye area in the Gaza enclave. The military statement confirmed heavy caliber shells hitting the Al-Muftahim complex and concentrated missile salvos striking the Mosque military base first clashes with the occupation army in downtown Gaza City were also reported. A crowd formed outside the Salam Mill, one of the biggest in Gaza, located in the center of the Strip. Some desperate to find food as Zionist weeks-long offensive on the innocent Palestinians in the enclave reduced supplies.
Palestinians who are trying to survive under difficult conditions went to Al Salam Flour Factory, one of the biggest factories in Palestine, and queued in front of it after the flour ran out in the markets. The factory, which has difficulty in finding fuel to keep the generators running, is trying to continue its work far below its capacity.
I came to get bread for my husband. He's sick. He had a kidney transplant. And we're still waiting. We came here right after dawn prayers. We were the first to arrive. Now we are on the line for nothing. They say there is no wheat.
The mill once had 50 employees working to produce 360 tons of flour daily on several production lines. But due to a shortage of electricity brought on by the Zionists' brutal war against innocent Palestinians, they could only power one line for 12 hours a day using a generator.
We have wheat that is enough for 1 month. We're talking about 100 tons of wheat, which makes 75 tons of flour. This is enough for people for a little time. The UNRWA should interfere to distribute wheat to all the flour factories or bakeries in the Gaza Strip.
People were on average queuing for 4 to 6 hours to receive half the normal bread ration.
This is a catastrophe. There are children, sick people, elderly. We call on the international community, the local community, international organizations, the Red Cross, the International Relief Organization, human rights organizations. We call on them to find a solution.
The UN Humanitarian Office said Gaza has wheat supplies that should be sufficient for 12 days. But the only operative mill in the enclave cannot transform the wheat into flour due to electricity outages. It said there were no stocks left of vegetable oil, pulses, sugar, or rice.
Spokesperson of UN Secretary General Stephen Dujarric said that Tuesday United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres is deeply disturbed by the dramatic loss of life in several hospitals in Gaza Strip. Dujarric added that the UN Secretary General calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire.
The Secretary General is deeply disturbed by the horrible situation and the dramatic loss of life in several hospitals in Gaza. In the name of humanity, the Secretary General calls for an immediate ceasefire.
U.S. media reports that U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken acknowledged the disagreements within the State Department over the Biden administration's approach to supporting the Zionist entity in its war crimes on Gaza via an email to employees on Monday. CNN reported that the Blinken's message to the State Department's employees comes amid growing anger and opposition not only from staff at the State Department but within the broader Biden administration.
I know that for many of you, the suffering caused by this crisis is taking a profound personal toll. The anguish that comes with seeing the daily images of babies, children, elderly people, women and other civilians suffering in this crisis is wrenching. I feel it myself.
The French newspaper Le Figaro said that more than 10 French ambassadors and diplomats working in the Middle East and the Maghreb collectively wrote and signed a note that carries the characteristics of a split regarding France's position on the situation in the Middle East. The newspaper, describing that an unprecedented in the history of French diplomacy in the Arab world, quoted a French diplomat stating the note that Paris' position at the beginning of the crisis was not understood in the Middle East, and constituted at a break with its traditional balanced position between the Palestinians and the Israelis, as he put it. Algeria expressed its strong condemnation and denunciation of ongoing series of obvious and proactive violations carried out daily by the Zionist occupation forces in the Gaza Strip, according to a statement released by the Algerian Foreign Ministry. According to the same source, the attack on the Qatari Committee for Reconstruction of Gaza's headquarters by Zionist occupation forces was a new breach of international law and its norms, going against human values and principles that demand protection of civilians. Algeria also expresses its unwavering support for the state of Qatar and the Palestinian people in their opposition to this heinous assault, reiterating its belief that the UN Security Council is ultimately in charge of putting an end to the Zionist aggression and guaranteeing the safety of the Palestinian people, according to also the Algerian Foreign Ministry statements. Away from Gaza Strip to the local matter, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune presided a Council of Ministers meeting which discussed two draft laws, the first related to alimony and the second to reconciliation of the budget for the year 2021, and presentations including digital transformation in Algeria and the status of wastewater filter plants. The President of the Republic issued a number of instructions and directives stressing on obligation of implementing resolutions on the Council of Ministers, supporting the vulnerable and middle classes, and raising the pace of implementation of remaining programs and commitments. Subsequently, the Council of Ministers agreed to a number of resolutions regarding the deal to complete the Tindouf-Bachar railway line, the deal to complete the drinkable water supply project in Bachar State, the status of used water filtration plants, the 2021 budget statements, draft law, and digital transformation in Algeria. In Algeria still, that is set to launch a national agency for self-entrepreneurship in January, aiming to promote immersion and entrepreneurial companies and create a favorable environment for innovative youth. During Entrepreneurship Days for World Entrepreneurship Week, the Algerian government revealed plans to establish 1 million startup companies in the country in the medium term. The 11th edition of North Africa Energy and Hydrogen Exhibition and Conferences, NAPAC, opened its doors at Convention Center in Algeria's city of Oran, with the main focus of introducing more renewable and conventional energy sources. The event was attended by 500 exhibitors representing 45 countries.
45 countries represented by around 500,000 participants all headed to the Algerian city of Oran to attend North Africa's biggest events in energy and hydrogen. This event brings together operators in the oil and gas sector and suppliers of products and services related to the hydrocarbon and energy sectors.
In these days, environmental concerns is a big topic for many governments, and then we have the product for that. Siemens Energy is committed to provide a sustainable future for all the world.
Algeria's aim today is to adapt to global changes in the field of energy and achieve a transition towards renewables gradually, and to move towards a variety of energy sources by exploiting all its potential, as rich as it is diversified.
We had a lot of discussion with all the IOCs, the international oil companies. So we listened to them We know their expectations, we know their preferences, and we are taking into consideration their preferences, and we are planning to launch it in 2024.
Despite all of this, the head of the National Agency for the Valorization of Hydrocarbon Resources said that Algeria also believes that oil and gas are still necessary to meet energy demand in the medium and long term, noting that meeting this demand depends on special national efforts and also on the contribution of partnership investments in the field of oil and gas.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us in this late hour. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself and good night.